Picture the tranquil Italian countryside outside Florence during a sweltering summer. In a quiet lover's lane, a young couple is found in their car, the victims of a brutal, ritualistic killer. This wasn't a one-time tragedy. It was just the beginning of a reign of terror that gripped Italy for over a decade, leaving a trail of horror and a mystery that still endures. This is the story of the Monster of Florence, and it's just one of the 10 unbelievable true crime stories we're exploring today. When you think of Italy, you probably think of art, ancient history, and amazing food. But beyond the sun-drenched hills and bustling city streets, there's a darker side. A history filled with baffling mysteries and crimes so strange, they almost don't seem real. Today, we're skipping the Hollywood Mafia cliches and getting into 10 real, unique crimes that shock the country and have puzzled investigators for years. These are the stories of audacious heists, cold-blooded killers, and sprawling criminal empires that reveal a side of Italy you've never seen. The Castel Volturno Massacre, 2008. Kicking off our list at number 10 is a crime that ripped the lid off the brutal clash between organized crime and racial tensions in modern Italy. On September 18, 2008, in the southern town of Castel Volturno, a commando unit from the notorious Sicily clan, part of the Camorra Mafia, stormed an arcade run by immigrants. They unleashed a hail of over 130 bullets, leaving 7 people dead. 6 of the victims were West African immigrants, targeted in a terrifying act of dominance. The 7th was the Italian owner of the arcade, likely murdered just to get rid of a witness. So, what was the motive? The Sicily clan wanted to send a message. They controlled the drug trade and wanted to punish the African community for allegedly operating outside their network. It was a bloody assertion that they were the law. The massacre sparked riots and outrage across Italy, shining a harsh light on the Camorra's violent grip on the region. The key players were eventually brought to justice, but the attack remains a dark chapter in Italy's ongoing war against organized crime. The Erba Massacre, 2006. Coming in at number 9 is a case that horrified Italy with its senseless domestic brutality, the Erba Massacre. On December 11, 2006, inside a quiet apartment building in the northern town of Erba, an unimaginable scene of violence unfolded. Raffaella Castagna, her 2-year-old son Youssef, her mother Paola Galli, and a neighbor, Valeria Cherubini, were all viciously murdered with a knife and a crowbar. The killers then set the apartment on fire to try and hide what they'd done. There was only one survivor, Valeria's husband, Mario Frigerio. He was attacked and left for dead, but miraculously survived because of a rare defect in his carotid artery. His testimony would be absolutely critical, because the killers weren't professional hitmen. They were Raffaella's next-door neighbors, Olindo Romano and Rosa Bazzi. The motive wasn't some grand criminal plot, but a series of petty neighborly disputes, including noise complaints. The fact that petty arguments could escalate into the cold-blooded murder of 4 people, including a toddler, completely stunned the public. Despite confessing, the couple's bizarre behavior has made this one of Italy's most debated modern crimes. As recently as 2024, their final request to have the case reviewed was rejected, upholding their life sentences. Sonya Caleffi, the Angel of Death. At number 8, we have a truly chilling killer who was hiding in plain sight. Sonya Caleffi. A nurse from the Como area, she perfectly fits the terrifying Angel of Death profile, preying on the most vulnerable. Between 2003 and 2004, while working in hospitals, Caleffi murdered at least 5 elderly patients by injecting air into their veins, causing deadly embolisms. Investigators suspect the true number of her victims could be much higher. What makes this case so uniquely disturbing is her motive. Caleffi didn't kill for money or revenge. Her defense argued that she didn't even primarily intend to kill. Instead, she claimed she would trigger medical emergencies in her patients just so she could be the one to save them. hoping to appear heroic and competent to her colleagues. This twisted need for attention often turned fatal. Caleffi, who had a history of mental health struggles, was ultimately sentenced to 20 years in prison. Unlike some reports have suggested, she was not released and is believed to still be serving her sentence, leaving behind a troubling legacy about the killers who wear a caregiver's uniform. The theft of Caravaggio's Nativity. Number 7 is one of the greatest unsolved art crimes in history. In October 1969, a couple of thieves broke into the Oratory of San Lorenzo in Palermo, Sicily. Armed with nothing more than a razor or a box cutter, they crudely sliced a masterpiece, Caravaggio's Nativity with St. Francis and St. Lawrence, right out of its frame. The painting, valued today at over $20 million, vanished into the night. The prime suspect has always been the Sicilian Mafia, Cosa Nostra, who likely stole the iconic artwork to use as a powerful bargaining chip. Over the decades, wild and often gruesome rumors have surfaced about what happened to it. Mafia informants have claimed the painting was used as a doormat by a top boss, was damaged and then eaten by rats and pigs in a barn, or was destroyed in an earthquake. None of these stories have ever been confirmed. The theft remains a deep cultural wound for Italy. Today, a high-quality replica hangs in the oratory, a haunting reminder of the priceless masterpiece that was stolen and never seen again. Roberto Succo, the European spree killer. Our sixth case is about a killer whose brutal rampage crossed international borders. At just 19 years old, Roberto Succo murdered both of his parents when they wouldn't let him borrow their car. Diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, he was sent to a psychiatric hospital. But 5 years later, in 1986, he escaped. What followed was a 2-year reign of terror across Italy, France, and Switzerland. Succo went on a spree of kidnappings, assaults, and burglaries, and murdered at least 5 more people, including 2 French police officers. His crimes sparked one of the biggest manhunts in modern European history. When he was finally captured near Venice in 1988, he chillingly told investigators, "I am a killer. I kill people." His case stood out for its transnational nature and his blunt lack of remorse. Though mentally ill, he was facing trial in France for his crimes when he staged a dramatic escape to the prison roof, just like in the movies. He was quickly recaptured, but shortly after, he committed suicide in his cell, ending the saga of one of Europe's most infamous spree killers.
The Ardeatine Caves Massacre. At number 5, we step back to one of the darkest days of World War II in Italy. The Ardeatine Caves Massacre wasn't a crime of passion or greed. It was a calculated act of wartime retribution. On March 23, 1944, Italian partisans attacked a column of Nazi SS police in Rome, killing 33 of them. Hitler's order for revenge was swift and merciless. For every German killed, 10 Italians had to be executed. The very next day, Nazi occupation forces, led by SS officer Erich Priebke, rounded up 335 Italian civilians. The victims were a mix of political prisoners, Jewish people, and ordinary men simply dragged off the streets. They were taken to the Ardeatine Caves, forced to their knees, and systematically shot in the back of the head. To hide the atrocity, the Nazis used explosives to seal the caves, entombing the bodies inside. The massacre remains a profound national trauma for Italy. Priebke, the officer in charge, escaped justice for decades before he was found living in Argentina. He was extradited to Italy and finally convicted in 1998. A late but crucial step in ensuring this horrific war crime was not forgotten. Maurizio Minghella, the Valpo-Cavera Strangler number 4, introduces us to one of Italy's most vicious serial killers, a man who led a terrifying double life. Maurizio Minghella was convicted of murdering at least 15 women. His killing spree happened in 2 distinct phases. Back in 1978, he murdered 5 women in his hometown of Genoa. He was caught, convicted, and sentenced to life in prison. But then, in a staggering failure of the justice system, Minghella was granted semi-release privileges in 1995, allowing him to work outside the prison during the day. He moved to Turin, and while he held down a job, at night, he returned to his predatory ways. Between 1997 and 2001, he murdered at least 10 more women, most of whom were sex workers. His crimes were marked by extreme brutality and strangulation. Minghella's case is a horrifying example of a repeat offender who was given the chance to kill again. It was modern forensic technology that finally linked him to the new wave of murders. He was sentenced to multiple life terms and is now locked away for good in a high-security prison. We're about to break into our top 3 most unique crimes from Italy. The scale and audacity of these next cases are on another level entirely. Before we do, which story has shocked you the most so far? Let us know in the comments. And if you're finding this glimpse into Italy's darker history fascinating, make sure you hit that subscribe button. The 'Ndrangheta Mega Trial. At number 3 is a modern legal battle of epic proportions, targeting what is now considered Italy's most powerful and global mafia, the 'Ndrangheta. Originating from the southern region of Calabria, the 'Ndrangheta is a sprawling criminal empire that controls an estimated 80% of Europe's cocaine trade, with an annual turnover that rivals a major corporation. In January 2021, Italy launched a maxi trial or mega trial against them. Held in a specially built high-security bunker, the trial initially charged over 350 defendants. This wasn't just mobsters. The list included politicians, public officials, and businessmen accused of working with the syndicate. The charges covered everything from murder and drug trafficking to extortion. This trial is historic not just for its massive scale, but because it aims to dismantle the 'Ndrangheta's connections to the legitimate economy and political world. In November 2023, a major verdict came down. Over 200 members and associates were convicted and sentenced to a combined total of over 2,100 years in prison, marking one of the biggest blows against any mafia organization in decades. The maxi trial before the 'Ndrangheta mega trial, there was the original that wrote the playbook. Coming in at number 2 is the landmark 1986 maxi trial against the Sicilian Cosa Nostra. This was the single largest and most important mafia trial in history. A full frontal assault on Italy's most infamous criminal organization. Inside a massive fortified bunker courtroom in Palermo, 475 mafiosi were put on trial at the same time. The key to the whole thing was the testimony of Tommaso Buscetta, a high-ranking boss who decided to break the mafia's code of silence, the omertà. His insider knowledge allowed prosecutors Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino to map out the entire structure and leadership of Cosa Nostra for the first time ever. The trial was a monumental effort, ending with 338 convictions and thousands of years in prison sentences. It was a declaration of war by the Italian state against the mafia. But the victory came at a terrible price. The mafia retaliated, assassinating both Falcone and Borsellino in 1992, turning the two prosecutors into national heroes and martyrs in the ongoing fight against organized crime. The Monster of Florence. And at number 1, we return to where our story began, Italy's most haunting and notorious unsolved serial killer mystery. The Monster of Florence. Between 1968 and 1985, a phantom killer stalked the hills around Florence, targeting couples parked in secluded lovers' lanes. The monster murdered 16 people, using the exact same .22 caliber Beretta pistol in all 8 double homicides. The crimes were ritualistic and gruesome. In most of the attacks, the killer mutilated the female victims. The case created a climate of pure terror, even inspiring the character of Hannibal Lecter, and it sparked a chaotic, decades-long investigation filled with false leads and wrongful accusations. Police looked into everything from a satanic cult to a local farmer named Pietro Pacciani, who was convicted, then acquitted, and died before another trial could happen. 2 of his alleged accomplices were also convicted, but serious doubts have always lingered. The case continues to evolve, with reports in 2024 of investigators re-examining old DNA evidence. Half a century later, the question of who the Monster of Florence really was remains an open wound in Italy, a chilling mystery about the true face of evil. From the ritualistic slayings of a phantom killer to the global corruption of powerful mafias, these 10 cases reveal the incredible depth of Italy's criminal history. They are stories of shocking violence, brazen greed, and mysteries that just won't die. They show us that behind the beautiful facade of one of the world's most beloved countries lie dark, complex tales that continue to fascinate and horrify. For many of these cases, the fight for justice is far from over, proving that the search for truth never really ends. Thanks for watching.